Mics are on. Mics are on.
I might in another year or two, I'll get my meter replaced.
Whose are these? These are.
We had recording devices sitting on our tables last night.
We did? Okay. Because y'all were on else too.
One second, I'm sorry, my phone.
Okay, good. Go for it. I'll wait for you.
So Danny's doesn't stick around. No, he doesn't need to. He said he has to be in Fairfax in the morning anyway, so he's gonna drive up tonight, I think. Yeah.
I'd like to call to order this public hearing of September 28th, 2021 of the State Water Control Board. Tonight we're discussing the Mountain Valley Pipeline Draft Virginia Water Protection Individual Permit. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Heather Wood, Chair of the State Water Control Board. Other members of the board joining me tonight are Lou Wallace, Tim Hayes, Jill Cohen, and Dr. Jack Lanier. The State Water Control Board is a policy-making body of citizens appointed by the governor and empowered by the law to, among other things, adopt regulations and issue permits or certificates. Members of the board are not employees of the Department of Environmental Quality, but a member of the public. In addition, it is state law and regulation that are the basis for the actions taken by the board and the department. Neither the department nor the board has the authority to make changes to the law. I will serve as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. This hearing was authorized by the director of the department, and a notice of the hearing was published in the Franklin News Post, Smith County News, Messenger, Floyd Press, Roanoke Times, Danville Register and Bee, Chatham Star Tribune, Southwest Times, Virginian Leader, Salem Times Register, Newcastle Record, Benton Messenger, Fincastle Herald, News Messenger, and Radford News Journal. This hearing is being held as one method for the board and the department to receive public comments of the Draft Virginia Water Protection Individual Permit for the Mountain Valley Pipeline Project. Written comments are also being accepted by the department by mail, email, and fax through October 27th, 2021. This fact-finding proceeding is being held pursuant to sections 2.2-4019 and 62.1-44.155 of the Code of Virginia and the board's procedural rule number 1. When a public hearing is held, the board makes the final decision on the permit. No decisions will be made tonight. The board will make a decision at a future board meeting currently planned for December 14th, 2021. The comments we hear tonight and heard last night will be collected along with the written comments received during the comment period. Comments relevant to the draft permit will be reviewed and considered in the development of the department's final recommendations for the board's consideration. Also, I would like to note that there is a quorum of the board in attendance at tonight's hearing. and there was a quorum at the public hearing last night as well. Because the board is hearing the public comments firsthand during these hearings, the board will not provide an opportunity for public comment on the draft permit at the meeting when we consider final action on the draft permit. The state water control law does not require that there be an opportunity for public comment at the meeting when the public hearing is conducted by a quorum of the board. Please be assured that all oral and written comments relevant to the draft permit will be considered by the board when we meet in December. Rules for commenting this evening are as follows. Each person wishing to provide oral comments has 3 minutes in which to do so. No pooling or consolidation of minutes may occur. Written comments may also be handed to any department staff person here tonight. And if I could ask DEQ staff to raise your hands so that folks know who you are. And you may hand comments to any of these individuals. Your name and mailing address must be included on those comments. This hearing will adjourn at 9 p.m. or when everyone present has had an opportunity to speak, whichever occurs first. I will call on any or federal state legislators to speak or their representatives first, to be followed by those people who have signed up to speak in order of sign-in until the hearing adjourns. If you do not get an opportunity to speak, please consider submitting your comments in writing. All comments relative to the draft permit will be considered regardless of whether the comments are submitted orally or in writing, and written comments may be as long or as short as necessary. For the purpose of tonight's hearing, is to receive your comments on the draft permit. No questions will be answered at tonight's hearing. Courteous and respectful behavior is expected from everyone here tonight, and we certainly had that last night. Disruptive attendees may be asked to leave, or if considered necessary, a recess may be called, or the hearing could be adjourned. We will be recording tonight's public hearing, and the recording will be made available on the DEQ's YouTube meeting channel. Please note that the public comment period for this draft will close at 11:59 p.m. on October 27th, 2021. I would now like to introduce the principal department staff present: Melanie Davenport, Director, Water Permitting Division; Dave Davis, Director, Office of Wetland and Stream Protection, in the back, the door; Steve Hardwick, Central Office, Virginia Water Protection Permit Program. Steve's right over there by the window. Melanie Davenport will now provide a brief introduction.
Mountain Valley Pipeline was issued an Upland 401 water quality certification on December 8th of 2017. Virginia state law and the Virginia Water Protection Permit regulations specify that in addition to the Upland 401, an individual Virginia water protection permit is needed for certain gas pipelines, of which Mountain Valley is one. A joint permit application for a Virginia water protection permit was received by DEQ on February 22nd, 2021, and as earlier mentioned by Chairperson Wood, the draft VWP individual permit and notice of these public hearings were published in a number of local newspapers. My role tonight is to call on folks who have signed up to speak. And I'm going to apologize up front if either I have a hard time reading your handwriting or I mispronounce your name. And when you do come to speak, you can feel free to correct my pronunciation. We do ask before your comments that you give us your name. And we are going to call 5 people at a time to please line up, because that'll help us get through the comments pretty efficiently.
At this time, I will call on any federal or state legislators or their representatives that have indicated a desire to speak.
I do not have anyone on the list.
Is there anyone in attendance that, okay. So now I'll call on those individuals who have indicated on the sign-in sheet that they wish to speak. And again, I would like to remind everyone that you have 3 minutes to present your comments, and you should be able to see the timer here behind me.
Robert Cooper, Jerry Adams, Tommy Oliver, Paul Nestor, and Michael Barber, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. My name is Robert Cooper. I'm the Senior Vice President of Engineering and Construction for Mountain Valley Pipeline. Thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you again today. On behalf of the entire MVP team, I also want to thank the professionals at DEQ for all of their hard work over the last 5 years. We have found the staff to be very thorough and demanding, but always professional. I'm here to express MVP's unreserved support for the comprehensive draft Virginia Water Protection Permit published by DEQ and pending before the board. As members of the board are aware, MVP obtained all necessary permits and approvals to begin construction in early of 2018. Work on the project began at that time and is now substantially complete. Of the 304 miles of the pipeline, 272 are in the ground. Two notable areas of remaining upland work include about 8 miles in and near the Jefferson National Forest and some of the route in Roanoke County. The overall project, including interconnects and compressor stations, is more than 90% complete. Our objective is to complete the remaining sections of the project as expeditiously as allowed, so that the right-of-way can be fully restored and revegetated. This is, and has been since 2018, the best outcome for water quality and the environment in general. MVP is not asking you to approve any new stream and wetland crossings. Every crossing in the permit application has been previously reviewed by this board and DEQ in 2017 and 2018. To develop the pending application, MVP engaged in an exhaustive analysis to further reduce the project's impacts. Through that analysis, we were able to eliminate approximately 1/3 of the stream and wetland open-cut crossings and have a permit being considered by the FERC to perform those as underground bores. We have been vigilant about avoiding permanent impacts to the stream and wetlands. We are proud of the fact that approximately 99% of all stream and wetland impacts will be restored when the construction is complete. We've also committed to a monitoring plan for those crossings for years after construction is finished. If that monitoring shows that streams and wetlands have not been successfully restored as expected, we have committed to developing adaptive management action plans subject to DEQ's review and approval to make things right. We have proposed to provide mitigation credits for every stream and wetland that is temporarily impacted by the project. Mitigation credits are normally provided only for permanent impacts, and we understand our proposal is unprecedented for construction projects in Virginia. MVP believes that all of these efforts address the comments that have been issued by the EPA. I'll conclude by reinforcing MVP's commitment to completing this project in an environmentally responsible manner. You heard people talk last night about the 300 violations during the early periods of upland construction. Yes, we did have challenges during a time when the Roanoke Valley had experienced the highest levels of rain in over 20 years. We suspended construction in problem areas and went to work with DEQ developing additional protective measures. Over the last 2 years, these measures have resulted in an exceptionally strong compliance record under very difficult conditions.
Sir, if I could ask you to move to your conclusion, because your 3 minutes have...
Oh,
yeah.
My apologies.
It's okay.
So, in conclusion, we believe that the actions we've taken and are before the board with this public hearing support the approval of the permit in the December meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, so he's here. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Jerry Adams, General Manager of the Roanoke Bar Division of Steel Dynamics. The Roanoke Bar Division of Steel Dynamics has more than 430 employees in the Roanoke Valley, but it doesn't stop there. On average, for every one of our 430 teammates, there are 7 other jobs in the area that help support our operations. These include industrial contractors, mechanical contractors, electrical contractors, parts suppliers, and various other support services. This means our operation helps support an additional 3,000 jobs and businesses throughout the Roanoke Valley. Roanoke Bar Division of Steel Dynamics is a leader in the production of sustainable, low-carbon emission steel products. These products are the backbone of the infrastructure and construction throughout the East Coast and across the Midwest. We're one of a small number of steel producers that exclusively uses electric arc furnace technology. The raw product for this technology is ferrous scrap metal. This makes our facility one of the largest recyclers of ferrous metal in the state of Virginia. We take scrap metal and produce the steel that builds our future. Environmental sustainability is one of our company's core values. We call it an intentionally sustainable approach, and we're committed to reducing our environmental footprint, lowering greenhouse gas emissions. Having a reliable supply of natural gas is a major factor in our company's ability to meet our emissions goals while fulfilling the demand for our steel products. The Mountain Valley Pipeline is critical to meeting that need. The impacts of last February's ice storm created a very real supply issue, and this showed how important it is to this region for MVP to be in service. Our company supports MVP's decision to offset pipeline's operational emissions. We believe this is a good thing for MVP and a good thing for Virginia. The construction of MVP has already been approved and most of the project work has been completed. Mountain Valley's plans to cross wetlands and streams under the draft Virginia Water Protection Permit are appropriate and responsible, minimizing environmental impacts from construction. Completing the remaining work under the conditions of this permit would be the best possible outcome for this region and for the Commonwealth. Reliable and affordable access to natural gas is a key ingredient to making sure the Roanoke Valley's economy is stable and growing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am Tommy Oliver, a resident of Franklin County, Virginia. I am Vice President, Interim CFO for Roanoke Gas Company. My comments tonight are intended to rebut certain assertions and comments you have heard about the need for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Prior to joining Roanoke Gas Company, I worked at the Virginia State Corporation Commission for 30 years, during which I presented expert testimony in over 125 cases before the commission, a number of which involved the DEQ. As a public service company, Roanoke Gas has a statutory obligation to serve all customers on a non-discriminatory basis. Based on this obligation, in 2015, the company executed an agreement to buy capacity on the MVP and made certain investments to interconnect with the MVP, specifically the Summit View and Lafayette Gate stations. During the company's last rate proceeding before the SEC, the prudency of these decisions was challenged by a very vocal opponent of the MVP. After a 15-month proceeding, the commission issued a final order in January of 2020 in which, specific to the MVP, it concluded, and I quote, "Turning to the record, the commission finds that the company's decision to construct the Summit View and Lafayette Gate stations and the Lafayette Loop Line was reasonable and prudent in order to provide additional capacity to meet Roanoke's public service obligations. This finding is supported by, among other things, the following. And for the sake of time, I will not read all of the findings, but some of the relevant ones to the MVP are: these facilities are needed to procure additional capacity to serve firm load. There are no reasonable comparable alternatives. Additional infrastructure is needed to serve significant portions of the company's certificated service territory in Franklin County. As previously illustrated by comments from the Franklin County Administrator and further testified by the company, the Summit View Station is needed to support current economic development in that county. The company has been unable to increase its firm capacity since 2006. These facilities will also provide operational and ancillary benefits to the company's system. In conclusion, the SEC, the agency created by the Constitution of Virginia to decide matters of need for certain infrastructure projects, has rejected opponents' arguments regarding need and found that there is a need for that capacity and associated gas the MVP will provide Roanoke Gas's customers. Despite what you may have heard, the SEC's determination, which was not appealed to the Virginia Supreme Court, is final. In addition, the FERC, the federal agency or the regulatory authority over the construction and operation of interstate pipelines, has also found the MVP is needed over the objections of project opponents. The FERC's decision was appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, which affirmed the FERC's finding of need and all other aspects of the FERC's order approving MVP.
Mr. Oliver, I need you to wrap it up if you may.
I'm done. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Madam Chairman and members of the board, good evening. I am Paul Nestor of Roanoke County, Virginia. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to provide comment. I'm the president and CEO of Roanoke Gas Company. I'm here on behalf of Roanoke Gas's 100 employees and 63,000 customers, some of whom are among the region's most recognizable names: Carilion Clinic, Yokohama, UPS, Roanoke College, Hollins College, Lewis Gale, and the Salem VA Hospital. Roanoke Gas has proudly served this community since 1883. Our record speaks. We have invested $250 million in our gas distribution system over the last 20 years and donated $2 million to the community in that time frame. Our board has an average tenure of 17 years. We are not short-term thinkers. Our board, employees, and customers live in this region and care about the environment. We are here for the long haul. Southwest Virginia needs more natural gas. Since I last appeared before this board in 2017, Roanoke Gas has added over 2,300 customers, including 557 new customers in 2021 alone. The average consumer continues to demand natural gas to cook and to heat their home and water. We have exhausted all other supplies, and we need Mountain Valley Pipeline to serve our community. According to the Roanoke Regional Partnership, this region's Economic Development Office, since 2015, there have been 481 proposals that have considered investments in this region. Of these, 431, or 90%, have required natural gas. In the last 3 weeks, just now in the month of September, we have assisted the partnership with 3 opportunities requiring significant natural gas that can only be provided by the Mountain Valley Pipeline. These 3 opportunities had an average investment of $360 million and would create, on average, 900 new jobs. It is imperative that Mountain Valley be completed to attract these projects, create job growth, and assist the average everyday customer, especially low-income residents, to keep rates low. My family and I live downstream from the Mountain Valley's pending Roanoke River crossing, and I actually live about 1/2 mile from the Roanoke River. Our drinking water is provided by the Roanoke River. I have as much personal interest in water quality as anyone. My family and I frequent the Roanoke River and Smith Mountain Lake and have done so for many years. Water quality has not been compromised since the on-again, off-again construction that started in 2018. Wildlife, including birds, waterfowl, and fish of all species in and around these waters, has never been healthier. We believe DEQ's oversight should be as stringent as it can be, and the proposed water protection permit reflects that. We have confidence that MVP's intensive analysis of each remaining water crossing will more than satisfy DEQ requirements and that water quality will not be sacrificed. The MVP is largely complete. With the necessary approvals over the coming months, MVP can be done by the summer of 2022. I have visited the project many times, including last week, and observed temporary erosion and sedimentation measures, as well as final restoration. Future erosion and sedimentation impacts would be eliminated by final restoration.
Mr. Lester, if I could ask you to
Yes,
conclude.
ma'am. I apologize. I'm just about done. On behalf of this region, I respectfully ask that you approve the water protection permit and the DEQ continue its proper and thorough oversight of the Mountain Valley Pipeline project. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Michael Barber, and I'm an organizer with the Labor Union. The Mountain Valley Pipeline drafted permit before you provides more protection of water quality than the permit previously approved by the Water Board back in 2017. Also, the DEQ had previously reviewed every single crossing in this application already. With the draft permit being based on sound science and based on fact analysis, I fully support the project and hope it completed and restored swiftly. Please consider approving this permit. We need this infrastructure improvement to enrich the region and our country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Hurst, Oludare Ugunde, Russell Chisholm, Louisa Gay, and David Werner.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Chris Hurst. I'm the delegate for the 12th District in the Virginia House of Delegates, which represents all of Giles County, portions of Montgomery County, the city of Radford, and part of Pulaski County. Some 35 miles of MVP is planned and proposed to be going through the 12th District in Giles and Montgomery County. I think it's unfortunate that part of the comments previously, and something that I'll address here in my comments, is on the economic impact. But, again, you all are the State Water Control Board, and what we are trying to determine here is what's going to happen to water quality, not what's going to happen to the economy, and certainly not what's going to happen to the economy in Giles County or Montgomery County, because I haven't heard anything about any type of economic potential benefit that's going to happen to the parts of the Mountain Valley Pipeline that go through the 12th District. But I have seen firsthand the impacts of construction failures. I've heard stories from folks that I represent who continue to feel that erosion and sedimentation mitigation controls are insufficient. You all, in coordination with Department of Environmental Quality in the last few years, have cited MVP for 300 some odd violations and lengthy fines. That wasn't done because they simply had a bad rain season. It was done because they fundamentally are flawed in the ways they're trying to protect the drinking water and the natural waterways that we have all throughout Southwest Virginia. As I mentioned, those violations caused us to actually pass legislation in the General Assembly to have stiffer fines and penalties if you have bad actors. But when I talk to folks on the ground who have been doing the every single day work of inspecting those who are doing that action on a much more continual basis than the General Assembly unfortunately has funded for state agencies to be able to do on their own, we know that violations are continuing to occur and unfortunately are not being addressed in meaningful ways. That we continue now, as some water crossings are being endangered, that now really the problems of turbidity are upon us. You can talk about no issues that have happened prior to now for people's drinking water. That's because they haven't been able to do the water crossings yet. And you can't do this open trench digging. You can't dam up people's waterways and then expect that there's not going to be long-term damage that happens to their drinking water, to their well water, especially when we're talking about so many of these feeder waterways and tributaries are not continuously full of water. And that's why it may look dry right now. It may look like something that you can open cut right now. But when we get rain, we haven't had much this summer. We've had some here in the harvest season. That's been great. But when we get it, that's when the problems are going to arise. And because in its determination with DEQ that we haven't had those individual stream analyses yet, and because some of the modifications that were proposed from the EPA have not been fully addressed in any of the proposed mitigation circumstances that are now before you here, there really is no actual data that you are basing a lot of these decisions on to get any type of baseline information for what the water is and what the impacts are going to be. I will leave you with this because I know that I'm over my time. Just because I've been elected to office doesn't mean I should have any more time to speak to the general public. I believe that. But I will say this. Your job is not over yet. This pipeline is not fully constructed yet. There is still more work to be done, more scrutiny to be had. This is not a done deal. Do not let institutional inertia allow the 12th District in Giles and Montgomery County in particular to forever be irreparably harmed with no plan on how to make them whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate Hurst.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to comment on Mountain Valley Pipeline's draft water protection permit. I'm Russell Chisholm. I live in Newport, Virginia, in Giles County, near Sinking Creek, where my household relies on a spring-fed private water source from an interconnected karst watershed area. Please consider the analysis of Lucy Levesque and Monique Dubé, published in Springer Nature in 2007, which found that in examining the effects of isolated crossing construction, also found elevated total suspended solids concentrations downstream of crossing sites. These increases were associated with installation and removal of pipeline construction infrastructure, as well as the leakage of sediment-laden waters from an upland sump. Construction of multiple crossings on a stream or river or within a watershed has the potential for cumulative impacts on that system. In such cases, the capacity of the system to recover from impact may be exceeded, and the detrimental effects of crossing construction permanent. The same may be said for the frequency of crossing construction when given a system. Rivers and streams will have limited capacities to recover from multiple impacts. Please think about that. A peer-reviewed scientific journal has recognized that the negative impacts from multiple crossings of the same stream or in the same watershed may be permanent. MVP proposes to cross hundreds of streams and wetlands and watershed systems, some of them multiple times, on or below steep, slip-prone slopes. The kinds of impacts described in the study would be serious violations of Virginia's water quality standards because they interfere with or even eliminate the designated use of aquatic life support. The best indicator of whether continued MVP construction will lead to future impacts to these systems is their already well-documented track record of failure. Inspection and compliance reports to DEQ and FERC contain scores of incidents of where sediment was deposited off-site, some blanketing water bodies due to sediment control devices failing or being overwhelmed. Many of these required in-stream cleanup. The board should consider the likelihood that the pattern will repeat itself and do permanent harm to surface and groundwater and karst areas where local residents rely on private wells and springs. Exceptional state water is important to quality of life and outdoor recreation, such as Little Stony Creek and Bottom Creek, are also at risk from permanent cumulative impacts. Teals Creek is crossed 7 times. The Sinking Creek watershed, the Roanoke River, and New River basins contain hundreds of direct tributary crossings. I join other commenters in referring you to the EPA's May 27th letter to the Army Corps. This board, like the EPA, should be demanding to see more baseline information on every water body, including benthic sampling that would be required to assess streams under the Virginia Stream Condition Index. MVP's application does not address how long it will leave temporary fills in place, how those fills will be removed, or how the applicant will restore the aquatic resources impacted by the fills. In conclusion, the EPA does not view this application as complete, and they recommended against approving the 404 permit application in its current state because it might violate water quality standards. Those same deficiencies should lead this board to deny the requested 401 certification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I thank you for this opportunity to make a comment. My name is Louisa Gay, and I live in Blacksburg, Virginia, in the Mount Tabor area. The recent draft issue by the DEQ in September of 2021 contains in its first paragraph the following statement, quote, "The board has determined that there is a reasonable assurance that this VWP permit, if complied with, will not violate applicable water quality standards," end quote. The word if is an assumption. And the DEQ, as well as the Water Board, there is cognizant that MVP has not proven to be a good steward of Virginia's water bodies. Their erosion and sediment control do not work in our steep terrain and narrow valleys where our water bodies are situated. We frequently read MVP compliance letters bemoaning a rain event of 1 inch or less, which is not uncommon in this area. With geotechnical surveys still outstanding among other concerns with the boring under these 83 water bodies, it would be ill-advised for the DEQ to issue any permit, given MVP's history of violations. The best prediction of future MVP operations is their past operations. And I refer to Delegate Hurst's comments about the 300 violations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. My name is Oludare Ogunde. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I'm a co-founder and president of a nonprofit in Steel Richmond, and also the lead organizer for the Laborers Union in Richmond, Virginia. I spoke yesterday and I spoke about the public safety aspect of this for our returning citizens, getting good quality jobs on this pipeline. I'm in support of the pipeline. But I want to say something different today, and I think the problem we have here in the United States is that we argue ad nauseum about things we should not be arguing about, right? You're 90% complete on the project, and we're talking about canceling it after being almost 90% done. This is wastage. I don't even think we should be here debating this issue at this stage of the project. That's number one. Secondly, we are way behind. This country is way behind in infrastructure. And we're falling so much behind every other country that we have to keep borrowing because we are missing the essential things for production. That is why you see people in Franklin County complaining about industries, companies not coming to that county. So we're gonna keep borrowing money because we're depriving ourselves of the infrastructure, of the necessary things to have our own production. So let's think about that very carefully. You know, I mean, we can continue to talk about this all day, all night, you know, and keep falling behind China and some of these other countries. You know, before you know it, the United States is going to become a third world country because they're going far in front of us and we keep treading waters and keep saying the same thing over and over again. Please, I beg of you, natural gas, you know, is going to make a lot of impact in these rural communities, you know, and I don't see any reason at 90% completion, even if it's 60% completion, that we want to scrap everything we've done, throw all this money in the trash, and say, you know, don't let us do this. So I beg of you, let's use common sense. I don't have to cite science. We know what is going on. You're 90% in there. Let's finish the remaining 10%. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dave Warner, 225 Pine Street, Floyd, Virginia. On February 12, 2019, Todd Normain, Deputy General Counsel for Equitrans Midstream, wrote a letter to David Paler in his role as Executive Secretary of your board. I'm going to quote just a portion of that letter. It says, while no large-scale construction project is ever perfect, we work closely with DEQ staff to make adjustments and enhancements following the extraordinary rainfall conditions during 2018 that adversely impacted this project and many other active projects across Virginia. This cooperative effort on the project has achieved a high level of environmental protection and overall is in very good order. Now I have a letter, the Mountain Valley Pipeline actually publishes weekly. It's their weekly report, which they report to FERC. This one is dated September 17th, 2021. And it is called the Weekly Status Report 201. In this report, they kind of self-evaluate themselves. And in this particular case, it covers the areas of spread G and H, which is Giles County, Roanoke, Montgomery, part of Franklin County. Also in this report, I comment that there were 2 non-compliance reports and 19 problem area reports, and this just covers August and September of this year. A couple of those I want to point out to you. Here's one from September 2nd in spread G. It says a 12-inch render control overtopped at 11366 plus 66, resulting in sediment approximately 20 feet outside the LOD, and a water bar end treatment at 11471 plus 00 overtop, resulting in sediment approximately 2 feet outside the LOD after a significant rain event producing 2.9 inches in 6 hours. Here's a non-compliance report dated September 2nd. Temporary BMPs were not put back into place at the end of the day, resulting in sediment outside the LOD. There are several other ones. One of the most significant ones I'll leave you with is August 16th, sump pit end treatments were overwhelmed, resulting in 15 cubic yards of sediment leaving the LOD, approximately 75 feet after a significant rain event. My point is, as good as Mountain Valley has learned to do construction in this environment, I just don't think it can be done. And I think you should rule against them for any more permits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Stefanini, Boucher Mooney, Harry Hauser, Kay Ferguson, and Michael Bentley, please.
Good evening, and thank you for holding this hearing. My name is Steve Stefanini, and I'm here to speak in favor of the permit for MVP. Most people who don't work in construction can't understand what it's like to maintain a construction site for several years. When work on the MVP started, the project had all of its approvals and permits. We got started on tree clearing, grading, and preparing the right-of-way. Then we had to stop. Now we have been maintaining some of these areas for more than a year. In some places, it's more like 2 years, maybe longer. Every time it rains, we're out there fixing filter socks and clearing sumps. We're rebuilding water bars. We've got a punch list of tasks that we're doing every shift to make sure we're keeping the dirt from leaving the right-of-way. We've worked really hard on this, and I think the crew has done an incredible job. We had an unprecedented amount of rain back in 2018. I think it was some kind of a record. That was tough, but this company still stepped up and put even more protections into place. Since then, things have been as good as you can expect from this type of a construction site and environment. All these things have helped protect the environment, but they're not as effective as just finishing construction and restoring the right-of-way. Once we restore the right-of-way, everything but trees can grow there. This should be the goal, and that's why I hope you'll approve this permit. We've already crossed streams of wetlands, and we've done that right. We're going to do the rest of them right, too. Please approve this permit. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Boucher Mooney, by the way. Anyway, I'm here in support of the MVP, and I'm a proud member of the Pipeliners Local Union 798, and I'm currently employed on the MVP by Precision Pipeline as a welder. I have over 30 years experience as a welder, and 22 of that has been in the pipeline industry. I've worked on many major interstate oil and gas pipelines all over this country, and they're up and operating safely. And I can say that the MVP is by far the most scrutinized project I have ever seen in all of my years. I urge the board to approve and issue this permit for the pipeline to cross the streams, wetlands, so that the project can progress and reach a completion. The restoration of the right-of-way seemed to be the main concern last night at the meeting that I attended from a lot of the landowners. As a matter of fact, there was one landowner who is in favor of the pipeline, but he has had enough because his land can't be restored because it's not completed and tied in. Anyway, the best way for that to be achieved is install it. Get it through these wetlands. Let's get it tied in, complete our hydrostatic testing. The line will be ready to commission, and the restoration can commence. The right-of-way crews can get on there, do their thing, and get this thing restored 100% the way it needs to be, environmentally sound, and it can be done. I've seen it. All other areas of the country, steep terrain just like this. I've seen it happen, and pipelines are up and running safely. So I urge you to issue this permit so that we can get finished with our job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
How y'all doing tonight? I'm Harry Hauser, welder member, Pipeliners Union, Local 798. Been building pipelines 30 years. Since 2018, we started this project. Had we been left alone and this project went through at that time, half of the environmental issues we'd be dealing with today wouldn't be so, right? So, you know, almost every major river in the United States has a pipeline running across it. It's the safest form of transportation of any hydrocarbon. Natural gas happens to be one of the cleanest hydrocarbons you can use. Without natural gas, you can't build a windmill. You can't build solar panels. So I urge you to pass this water permit so we can get this done, get the right-of-way back, have grass growing on it, and there'll be a whole lot less sedimentation other than what naturally occurs anyways in all these tributaries. There's always natural occurrence involved. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
I'm Katie Ferguson, born and raised in Roanoke, currently in Albemarle County. I want to talk to you about 3 M's tonight. One is moat, one is math, and one is monitoring. So I'm feeling very hopeful about this moment and this opportunity to deny the 401 for the Mountain Valley Pipeline and stop this project and its destruction. I think it's great that it's come around to you again and you have another opportunity to make a different decision. My community, I call them water protectors for lack of more flattering terms, doesn't necessarily share my hope in this moment, but I'm sticking with it. I just feel like we have been up here, some of us for 7 years, certainly since 2017, and we've been signaling to you, we've been signaling to the board across this moat of silencing that the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality and the governors have put up so that you can't see or hear or believe us across this divide that keeps getting deeper and wider and now is being filled with alligators. A moat, a silencing, a barrier between you, a citizen board, and us, the citizens, the ones you're supposed to hear and protect. I'm hoping that you might be beginning to understand that what DEQ proves and what they tell you might be biased, partial, and untrue. I attended all the public hearings on the first permit for the Mountain Valley Pipeline and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. And every single person that I heard testify who did not have money in their pocket or about to be put in their pocket or weren't anticipating money in their pocket from the corporation, every person with legal and scientific expertise said you cannot do this in this terrain without damaging the water. Every single one. The blanket permit 12 was inadequate. Well, it turned out they were right. It was inadequate. Now that's been suspended. It's now illegal. And even under that permit, which was inadequate, hundreds of violations were committed by MVP. Hundreds. And now they want to go around. They want a new permit. They want a different set of rules. They want a permit that's even more damaging to our waterways. And whenever anybody on the State Water Control Board has sort of seen our signals and stood up, they either go away pretty quickly, or the director of the DEQ and the lawyer, whichever one from Mark Herring's office, start to tell them that, oh, you got to be so careful here. You're going to get sued. You don't really have the power to do anything. And And if you talk to these people offline or go and see what they're trying to show you, you're exhibiting bias. Now, the director of the DEQ works for a governor who takes large amounts of money from this corporation. The lawyer from Mark Herring's Attorney General's office works for a man who takes large amounts of money from these corporations. But that's not bias.
Ma'am, I'm going to
You
ask you to
having
wrap
a
it up.
conversation with us or coming out to see what we're trying to show you, oh, that's bias. I have hope that you're offended by the most recent DEQ preemptive publication that you've already made a decision that you're going to approve this, just like they have. Before we've had a chance to say anything, or you've had a chance to meet or make a decision.
Ma'am, I need you to wrap it up, please.
I'm going to wrap it up, but I'm going to remain hopeful. I'm going to remain hopeful that you will seize this opportunity to do the right thing, deny this permit, and end this project. I didn't get to monitoring, but I am going to say math. You cannot add more and end up with less. It's code red for the survival of the species. You can't keep building more and have more emissions and then have less emissions. It won't work. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Bentley. I want to say how my wife and our 3 children value the clean air and clean water we have where we live in Salem. Besides our dependency on them for everyday life at home, we are avid participants in outdoor recreation, hiking as well as canoeing and kayaking on all 3 of our nearby rivers, as well as some of the smaller tributaries. We are concerned about how the Mountain Valley Pipeline will affect our clean air and water and our enjoyment of our many outdoor activities in Roanoke, Montgomery, Craig, Giles, and Franklin counties. DEQ has not analyzed short-term or long-term impacts of the pipeline on recreational uses, such as these, that would result from construction or maintenance of the pipelines. My expertise as a scientist tells me that the Mountain Valley Pipeline will impair our water quality. I believe the environmental impact of the proposed pipeline has been greatly underestimated. Our area of Virginia, the Ridge and Valley province, is underlain with karst topography and soils that are not suitable to support a 42-inch diameter, high-pressure natural gas pipeline ascending and descending mountains at a steep angle. The Mountain Valley Pipeline crosses 225 miles of high landslide risk areas, the most out of all the pipelines analyzed in the study recently published in Energy Policy. Already, releases from construction activities on the mountains have resulted in downslope movement of sediment, and the pollution control measures proposed will not prevent damage to streams where there are steep slopes. A pipeline in this terrain is a recipe for failure at the joints, and all pipelines leak. Leaks into karst terrain can contaminate groundwater and be difficult, if not impossible, to remediate. The Code Red warning issued in August by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was startling. Our planet has already warmed by 1.2 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels, and this has happened a full decade earlier than predicted. Every year since 2013 has been warmer than the one before. The world is warmer now than it has been in the last 125,000 years. The rates of warming are unprecedented compared to any time in the past 2,000 years. The climate impact of the Mountain Valley Pipeline and its compressor stations would be enormous. The annual greenhouse gas emissions from the project's full life cycle has been projected to total as much as 90 million metric tons. It's been calculated that that's about what 26 coal-fired power plants emit. The EPA has told the Army Corps of Engineers that Mountain Valley Pipeline hasn't shown its worth to justify this risky project. The EPA indicated that it, quote, has identified a number of substantial concerns with the project, unquote, including, quote, insufficient measurement of secondary and cumulative impacts and potential for significant degradation.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up, please.
So thank you very much for your attention, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dan Crawford, Beth Slockner, Ernest Castner, Peter Anderson, and L. De La Cancella. I'm sorry, I can't read your handwriting very well.
Good evening, Board. I'm Dan Crawford, Chair of the Roanoke Group of the Sierra Club, reside in Roanoke. Never before has anyone attempted to cross terrain as challenging as the spine of the Appalachians with a pipeline anywhere near as large as a 42-inch MVP. Of course, there have been problems, including 300 violations of erosion and sedimentation regulations, but the especially challenging parts are yet to come, like waterways, wetlands, interstates, railroads, and such. Irreparable degradation of freshwater resources, extreme risk of explosion. These just begin a long list of reasons why this has been a terrible idea from the start. But let's look at the big picture. Given the high volume of leaks in harvesting through fracking and transporting natural gas, it's no cleaner than coal. Now, as we know, natural gas is 98% methane, an extremely potent greenhouse gas. But my biggest concern is the radical expansion of fossil fuel investment and dependence in the face of code red warnings. Virginia, the nation, and most of the rest of the countries on Earth are committing to renewables in a last-minute attempt to avoid the worst effects of climate change. We're world leaders in some fields, but in renewable energy investment, we are woefully behind. According to the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, China leads the world with 895 gigawatts of installed renewable energy, while we have 292. It's time to face the facts and abandon MVP before further harm is done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. How are y'all doing tonight? Thank you for holding this public hearing. I am Beth Stockner, and I'm speaking in support of the permit for the MVP on behalf of the Virginia Oil and Gas Association. VOGA is a nonprofit trade association that represents companies, partnerships, individuals, and other entities across the Commonwealth with an interest in the oil and gas industry. Our industry supports an estimated 125,000 jobs across the Commonwealth. And we have a long history of supporting and encouraging development of these resources in a safe and environmentally sound manner. Our members live here. We enjoy the outdoors, whether that's fishing, hunting, or camping. It is important to us that our industry's work is respectful and sensitive to natural resources. We feel the water protection permit is protective of the streams and wetlands that the MVP project would cross. MVP has already crossed water bodies successfully, as well as other linear infrastructure projects. The extensive review of MVP's plans and strong oversight by federal and state inspectors ensures that this work be done appropriately. To date, work on the Mountain Valley Pipeline is nearly complete. The compressor stations and original interconnections are ready for operation. More than 265 miles of pipeline have been welded and installed. More than half of the right-of-way has been restored. It is imperative that this project be completed. Its capacity is fully subscribed through long-term contracts. The federal government has twice recognized that MVP is needed to meet public demand. The pipeline will play an essential role in providing natural gas access to end users across Southwest Virginia and mid-Atlantic regions, including here in Virginia, where Roanoke Gas will draw from 2 taps on MVP for local use. Pipelines are the safest way to transport natural gas. We rely on pipelines every day, even without thinking about it, because they're safe and they're out of sight. In fact, there's already a natural gas pipeline that crosses the New River less than 1.5 miles from Radford University. It also runs under Spring Hollow Reservoir and near Camp Roanoke. Modern infrastructure can and does coexist safely with natural resources. VOGA is proud to support the construction and operation of the Mountain Valley Pipeline project, and we hope the board will agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having this hearing. My name's Dr. Ernest Castner. I'm a retired professor of geology here at this institution. And my field of expertise for over 50 years has been karst. The groundwater in karst and how karst operates. I'm an academic person. I've published in that field and so forth. The reason I'm wearing a red shirt today is not a political statement. If I were doing that, I'd be wearing a green shirt. I'm wearing a red shirt because there's one thing that I need to say in the 3 minutes I have, and that is karst is a red flag to anybody that knows all aspects of geology. It requires specialized attention by people who know the karst processes. My colleagues who work on this project with Draper Aden are friends of mine. They're cavers, like I started, but they don't have that academic background to understand the intricacies of karst. You cannot divorce karst in the subsurface with the streams that are in the surface. So if you're looking at stream crossings, it's imperative that you also look at that interconnectivity with the subsurface. Anything that happens in the surface in a karst terrain, or even upstream from there where the water comes down on the karst terrain, is going to impact the subsurface. I want to call your attention to 2 things. One is I wrote an 80-page report in 2016 that fully describes all of what I'm unable to speak about in 3 minutes, all the details. Please look at that, number 1. Number 2, I just want to address 2 specific sites that are extremely important. One is Sinking Creek in Giles County, where the road goes up to Mountain Lake Resort. There's a covered bridge there. Many of you may have been there. That sinking stream is a quintessential sinking stream in the eastern United States. It's been studied. We have 2 of the longest dye traces in the eastern United States go on each side of that potential crossing for the pipeline. 5 miles or so of stream underground tracing. The U.S. Geological Survey is currently monitoring that. They have a station there because somebody's aware that this could be a problem. There's no way to cross that stream safely unless you put the pipeline on a bridge, and that's verboten. You can't do that. Okay, the second place I want to address, and I'm going to make this real quick, is Mount Tabor area as part of Blacksburg. And that is a karst field. There's been a lot of dye tracing. Will Orndorff from the Department of Conservation and Recreation with the karst project, read his material too. It's impartial because he's a state employee, but it shows you just how extensive karst is. If we put the pipeline through either there, Sinking Creek, and many other smaller karst areas, we're asking for trouble. Please take the time to learn about karst if you haven't already. I know you folks are really concerned about this. Take the time to learn the details, please. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sir, you're able to submit your report if you'd like to.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Eldela Kinsella, I'm a Richmond resident, and on behalf of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, I request that the State Water Control Board reject the Clean Water Act 401 permit application. CCAN represents over 27,000 people in the Commonwealth, including folks who live along the Mountain Valley Pipeline. But I come to you not only in their stead, as many people are unable to take the risk of an in-person meeting, but as a Virginia resident who sees the danger in continuing to permit a pipeline that will cause irreparable damage to my home, both locally and globally. Firstly, the MVP has not made good on its existing permits over 300 times. 300 is a huge number, and it's indicative of consistently failing to implement best mitigation practices. 300 citations means that violating permits is business as usual for the MVP. What does it mean to minimize harm when MVP can't even adhere to that? And every resource held protected by statements of if complied with is in jeopardy. MVP's history shows that if is a small word with huge implications. And we need to look at the project as a whole. It's a bad investment with poor implementation. It's billions of dollars over budget, years over timelines, and it continues to fight legal battles on all sides. It has yet to receive approval from the 404 permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, and the EPA has expressed its disapproval of boring requests. Already years behind schedule, y'all heard it here, the MVP is facing pressure to finish this project quickly. How careful of a job can you be when you're quick? Granting permit for the MVP to cross hundreds of waterways in Virginia is not in the best interest of its residents. It will undoubtedly destroy areas of private and public land, only to line the pockets of CEOs and investors. MVP will not fulfill any energy demand in the region, which has been and will continue to be stagnant over the next decade, or nationally, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, which released a report earlier this year. So we cannot risk the drinking water of our neighbors for corporate greed. The State Water Control Board should have the interest of public health and the environment at the forefront, not supposed projected and economic benefits. The MVP spells doom for the planet writ large. As a recent report from the world's leading climate scientists raised a code red, we need to stop all fossil fuel infrastructure under construction, rapidly transition to clean energy, and begin to decommission older fossil fuel infrastructure if we're to ensure a livable planet. We cannot look at this permit individually and not consider what green lighting this pipeline will mean for our climate. The worst effects of climate change, which is anthropogenic and caused by carbon emissions, are yet to come. MVP's projected emissions would equate to building 26 coal-fired power plants. We need to stop it now or face the consequences, including more devastating and more frequent storms, and that can't be offset with permits. And I realize that I'm out of time, but I urge y'all to do what is right. And thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, Chairperson Wood, members of the board, Director Davenport. My name is Peter Anderson. I'm the Virginia Policy Director with Appalachian Voices, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We oppose certification of the project for several reasons, but I'm going to limit my comments today just to Virginia's anti-degradation policy. In short, there are 3 tiers of waters in Virginia. I'm going to address tiers 1 and tiers 2 in my comments. Tier 1 is the lowest quality, and Virginia regulations command that, at minimum, water quality must be maintained such that existing uses shall be maintained and protected. For Virginia's Tier 1 waters, there is no additional capacity to accept additional pollutants of the type that is impairing that water. Now, Mountain Valley's application does not identify these tiers for the water bodies it plans to cross, but FERC has stated that the pipeline would cross 13 Tier 1 streams in Virginia. A 2018 review by Hansen et al. Determined that at least 2 of those waters, Little Creek and Teals Creek, are biologically impaired due to excess sediment. We know that MVP's proposed crossings will add sediment. However, Little Creek and Teals Creek cannot accept additional sediment while maintaining their existing uses. Sedimentation is persistent in nature. Any additional sedimentation into Little Creek or Teals Creek is per se a violation of water quality standards because it violates Virginia's anti-degradation policy. Moving to Tier 2. Tier 2 waters in Virginia are simply those where water quality currently exceeds the minimum water quality standards. The quality of these waters may only be lowered if you, the board, makes a finding that allowing lower water quality is necessary to accommodate important economic or social development. While Mountain Valley did not categorize the tiers of the waters it plans to cross in Virginia, in the absence of data, Virginia's guidance presume that waters are Tier 2. To determine whether degradation will occur requires a calculation of baselines for all pollutants at issue, and here we're talking about sediment and turbidity. However, Mountain Valley has not determined existing sediment levels in the Tier 2 waters it proposes to cross, which is presumably most of the crossings are Tier 2. And it has not determined how much sediment the proposed crossings will add to those waters. This kind of quantification is possible through the use of modeling techniques to predict the turbidity and suspended solid concentrations that would result from pipeline construction. But this analysis simply has not been done. How can you, the board, answer the question whether or not there will be degradation without considering the present condition of the water body at issue? It is impossible to conduct the anti-degradation review required by state and federal law without this information. In its May 27th comments on the project, the US EPA emphasized the need for baseline information for every proposed crossing, citing the potential for, quote, significant degradation as one of the several reasons why the agency recommends the permit not be issued. The degradation that EPA predicts is necessarily a violation of the state's anti-degradation policy. That's my last sentence here. In accordance with the current federal rules implementing Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, this board can and must deny certification based on lack of information that would be needed to assure the discharge from the proposed project will comply with water quality standards. Thanks.
Thank you.
Joshua Vanna, Larry J. Williams, David Butterworth, David Mitchell, and Jason Crazy Bear Keck.
Hi, Joshua Vanna, co-director of Artivism Virginia. I live in Albemarle County. I'd like to speak to a couple things here, and I'll be submitting some other comments in writing. If I were on the board, I'd be getting pretty tired of this. I would have been tired of this probably the first time around back in 2017. But the longer we believe in the magical thinking that DEQ expects the board to believe in, the longer this nightmare is going to be drawn out for everybody. Everyone in this room who's fighting it, everyone who's lost a farm, everyone who is not able to be here because that maybe they're doing their own water quality monitoring on their property where the pipeline is going through. Magical thinking that even with hundreds of water quality violations, everything is fine. This magical thinking, expectation is enabled by, even in the State Water Control Board meeting this afternoon, Melanie Davenport could not report on how complete MVP was. And we all repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat the 92% figure that comes from Natalie Cox, which is clearly not the case. And anyone from any organization in this room who's not the industry could tell you that. The same expectation of magical thinking is enabled by language like a reasonable assurance. What did a reasonable assurance mean the first time when the water quality certification was issued? Clearly, it didn't mean a damn thing. It wasn't worth the paper that it was printed on. What do the words "if complied with" mean? That language is in this draft certification. If complied with, that makes the certification totally meaningless. It just says comply with it or not. Your choice. We don't care. Third, the magical thinking expectation is enabled by DEQ then following up all the disasters happening along the route by, oh, we're underfunded and understaffed and we just can't keep up. We can't talk. Well, how about why does the DEQ want the board to issue permits that DEQ cannot enforce? And it turns out has no plans on enforcing them. There's no plan. There's no plan. Watch my time here. I'd like to just part with if the board unfortunately issues this permit, and it should not, and it's going to be too late because you won't be able to revoke it because of some ridiculous thing that the Attorney General tells you that you can't do. If this pipeline ever goes operational, and a lot of people from the industry here would have you believe that pipelines never explode. Leach Express, Moundsville, West Virginia, 2018. Revolution Pipeline in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, 2018 landslides. Both of them exploded. And I saw the aftermath of the Revolution Pipeline with my own eyes, and it ain't pretty, and it's a hell of a lot smaller than MVP is. It's not 42-inch. 42-inch has not been run up and down these steep slopes. It's insane. It's time to stop the madness. You can use your power to stop the madness, and you know, every one of you up here on this stage, you know that you would not want it in your backyard.
Mr. Vanner, you're at time.
And you would not want David Paler telling you, as he told folks in Newport in August 17, that if someone's well was wrecked, they would have to just find another source of water. Do you want to?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry J. Williams. I served on the Giles County Board of Supervisors for 20 years. I was on the board when this project was proposed, when they come to us and showed us the first draft of it. And we really wasn't happy. The biggest thing was we wasn't happy with the route. It went right through our little community in Newport, and we hated to see that happen. But we asked them to look at rerouting it around Newport. And I like to say they did come over and met with us and looked at it, but the proposals that we had, the side slopes were too steep. They said it couldn't be done. So anyway, later on that year, FERC approved the project. They come to Giles and started the project. They cleared all the right of way through Giles and put up all the erosion control and went through our farms, took all our fences down, and we've been waiting now 4 years to get our land back. I've got farmers that had their cattle up feeding them now for over 2 years, feeding them year-round because they can't get them turned out. I farm myself. This project went through 3 farms that I operate, and I've got probably over 100 acres of land that I can't even use. I work along the pipeline route just about every day, and I like to say the Mountain Valley, I think, has done a good job with erosion control for what they've had to deal with. We've had some isolated storms. It's dropped out 4 or 5 inches of rain in 2 or 3 hours, and it's hard to do anything with that. But they got right on it and took care of it. I like to say they've done a good job with it. So I'm urging you to approve this project, approve the permit so they can finish this project. I understand they don't have but about 8 miles left to do in Giles. So we can get our land grass back over, our fences put back up, and that life get back to normal. I've got one other comment. Mr. Hurst made a comment a minute ago about he didn't know of anybody in his district that this was going to help. If Mr. Hurst would come over and visit Giles County a little more often, he would learn that one of our major industries in Giles County is hoping to hook on to this gas line. They're burning over 300 tons of coal right now, and they're hoping to be able to access this gas line. I put my faith in the Water Control Board and DEQ that they'll see if this project is finished right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is David Butterworth. I didn't register to speak, but I took up your time last night, and I still come in support of this project. So
I'm sorry, you are on
I
the
signed
list.
it. I signed up to attend the meeting only,
Okay.
but
Sorry about that.
I did not want to take up more of your time. But I'm still here
Okay.
in representation of Local 798, and I still support the
You're
project.
next on the list. So,
So,
you're
we good?
You're
Yep.
good.
Thank you.
Halito chima chukma yakuke anakma habanoke. That's just a greeting in my language of Chata, albeit it's a shortened version, but I am called to say it at a function and forum like this. And just understand, without the translation, all of those respectful welcomings were in that greeting. In a more civilized time in our story, you know, the shadowing story behind history, in a more civilized time, I could be up here advocating for the actual rights of the water itself, that sacred creation that gives life, carries life even in a woman's womb. But because we're here now and there is no actual English, colonizers' English descriptive way to talk about that, I have to do it from the laws and the things that your institutions care about, which speaks to the human beings. So if we're talking about the human beings' lives, it's the only thing I can advocate for. And the human beings' lives that are in danger of this pipeline, if you would just go out there and look on the fields of where they've left it, I'll tell you, I do feel for my workers of the pipeline, because I started 32 years ago right out of high school in the Steelworkers Union. And I remember when we sold out my union to China, to their steel, and my foundry closed, and I had to find a different skill and a different job. So I feel for these pipeline workers. However, now we're buying those pipelines from China, and they're sitting out there on the wasteland where MVP is just leaving them to be corroded. So by the time they're actually put in the ground, if so, they're gonna leak. Not if, they're gonna leak. They were gonna leak when they were in good condition, because the China quality steel is not the same that I poured 32 years ago. So the best thing to do with the money is to fix the pipelines that were made then, when me and my ancestors were pouring steel, fix the leaks and potential problems with them, instead of taking this cheap China steel, corroding as we speak, trying to kill everything living around it, to create this new shiny pipeline. It's just a shiny thing for the investor. Nobody on the ground makes money. My community doesn't make money. West Virginia, the people on the Hill, Virginia, North Carolina, all the places it's going don't make money. Guess what? All this talk about domestic use, they only started having that talk when we figured out it was for international use. Most of the states said they don't need the domestic upgrade. Most of the states are clear that the people are fine. They're making numbers of how many children are going to be born and how much gas things are going to use. I would hope that my children, when they're born, they don't have to use gas anymore. So all I have to say is I have nothing left to leave you from the water protector side but our truth. I don't have any money to pad any politician on either side of the political spectrum. But my truth, I would hope that it is more powerful than every lie MVP has ever told. And I would hope that it would free more people than the ancestors and MVP's slaves that they've ever sold. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure David Mitchell does not want to speak. Is that correct? Okay, we're moving on then. Daniel Arriaga, Andres Garcia, Grace Tuttle, Peter Jackson, and Crystal Mellow.
Hello, my name is Daniel Arriaga, and I'm out of Local 980. I want to thank you guys for letting me speak here today. I just want to say that I'm here in support of the pipeline. I've worked in construction for many years, and I've also worked for chemical companies in different states with their construction projects, and the environmental regulations that have been put on MVP are some of the strictest that I've seen in all of my experience. So they are doing a good job whenever, just one aspect, whenever it rains, they have people that drive the roads, check the right-of-ways constantly, looking for issues that need to be fixed, and they jump on them as soon as possible, and they fix them. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Ernest Garcia and I live in Newport News, Virginia. I am for the permit that's being talked about today. I've worked pipeline for about 5 years now, and I've worked in construction since I was out of high school. I've never seen a project with so many rules, so many things we have to do as soon as a storm comes. And I'm one of the ones that's out there every day. As soon as the storm comes, as soon as the storm passes, during the storm, walking the right of way, fixing everything that goes wrong with it. There's only so much you can do after a storm. You're not going to beat Mother Nature. The best way to get things back in order and in compliance is to finish the project and get everything back the way it was before we were even in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board and Director Davenport. My name is Grace Tuttle, and I'm speaking tonight in my personal capacity. I'm a resident of beautiful Bath County, Virginia, a place that almost shared the same fate as those places scarred by the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I'm going to start by saying that FERC itself said this project is 52% complete, not 92%. As I shared last night, the EPA has already said in no uncertain terms that the 404 permit as proposed may violate the Federal Clean Water Act. Their concerns extend to this 401 permit, which I hope you deny. But that's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. I came back to speak to you as my fellow human beings. I'm here to be vulnerable because speaking truth to power goes directly against the vested interests of the patriarchal, destructive capitalism that has landed all of us here today. I am afraid. I am afraid of what my future will look like. I'm afraid for my favorite birds, my favorite insects and plants. I'm afraid for the cool Bath County spring water that I drink every day. And I'm afraid to even bring children into this world for fear of what their future may look like. But when I'm with these passionate people here tonight, these stalwart people who have relentlessly fought for what is right, even though I am afraid, I will say what needs to be said, and that is the truth, even if my voice shakes. To all of those in the crowd who support this permit, I want you out of work. I want you to make good money, feed your families, have great health care, great housing, and do what you love. I want Appalachia to evolve into the thriving, lush, culturally rich place we all know it is. I want all life, not just humans, to come first. I, too, come from hard-scrabble Appalachian people who worked in factories, served in the Army, and scratched away out of poverty for me to be talking to you tonight. We are not so different. In fact, this fight needs you. We need your skills. If we stand a chance at turning this trajectory to climate catastrophe around. Where is your outlaw spirit? Like that gentleman last night said, where is your bootleg liquor, moonshine-making, Appalachian outlaw spirit? Hasn't our Appalachia sacrificed enough to this perpetual altar of industry? Hasn't our mother given enough of herself? Maybe it's because you're from Oklahoma and Texas, instead of Franklin, Montgomery, Giles, Roanoke, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, or West Virginia. You can feel in your heart that we need to change. We need to return, or come for the first time ever, to a way of being that is respectful, loving, and in partnership with our precious earth. We cannot go on this way. In order for us to change, we have to face who we are and what we've done. We have to feel it. Deep down, it hurts you to hurt the earth. Sit for a second in silence and feel how the truth creeps in. You're part of the earth and it's part of you. The structures that protect the destruction of earth, human supremacy, and greed will crumble when they can no longer support the weight of our delusions.
May I ask you to wrap this up, please?
I'm almost wrapping up, thank you. From one of my favorite authors, Janice Ray, quote, "This is for everyone, but it is especially for young people, in hopes that, given all the bad, you start building, not skyscrapers, not oil rigs, but lives that make sense, that contribute to
Wrap
a
it up,
lighter,
please.
more intelligent, more beautiful way of living on the earth. Lives lived as far outside and beyond corporate control as possible. That in doing so, you find meaning, that you attain higher planes.
Ms. Tuttle, I'm going to ask you one more time.
Or alcohol enslaves you, that you inhabit the country of love, that you find happiness. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pete Jackson. I'm the conservation chair for the local Trout Unlimited, the New River Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited. For the last 3 years, we have been testing Little Stony Creek. Little Stony Creek is in Giles County. It is a Class A trout stream. It is a major tourist attraction for the area as well. We've created a baseline of that testing within the last 3 years, and I assure you that this is fraught with all types of trouble when they cross this stream. The professor has mentioned that there was karst. There is karst in that area. Underneath the stream, there is also caving from the limestone plant that's located nearby. In September of 2018, the sinkhole areas and the caving collapsed and the stream disappeared. In that section, in the primary section, in the exact location that is proposed for the pipeline. We have no idea how that pipeline is going to be supported when it goes through this caving and this karst area. No one has addressed this with Big Stony, and Big Stony is an incredibly active cold water fishery. And so I assure you, and with our testing and our protocols that we've been doing with this testing, it is fraught with danger. And no one has attempted to tell me how they are going to drill underneath this river and supporting that pipeline in an open cave. We know it's an open cave because it has sunk. That river disappeared 3 years ago. It's just like Sinking Creek. It is much, but normally the water flows are so strong that it fills these caves with water. And that's why you still have a water flow across it. But if there is low water, this stream goes dry. If you open this cave up to a 42-inch pipe, I assure you, there's no way to support that pipe. And no one has addressed it. These are my concerns. We've addressed that to a lot of folks, and there has been no specific proposals from you or from other state agencies on how they're going to cross Big Stony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Crystal Mellow. I live in eastern Montgomery County. I want to thank y'all for making it here because it's very hard for us to make it to Richmond to voice our concerns about the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I have a letter here from a woman who couldn't make it because she's 91 and has lived in eastern Montgomery County her whole life. I am greatly concerned about the damage that will be done to our community when MVP attempts to burrow under the railroad tracks, Roanoke River, and 460 Highway in Elliston. I can visualize a major disaster. That is what has already been happening in our mountainous community. We have a huge scar with muddy runoff after each rain. Citizens have complained of contamination of their water supplies, but have not found help. Others complain that trees have been removed and have ruined their property. Please protect us from more destruction of properties. Nature is dear to us in this rural community. And I told her she had to tell y'all who she was. She said, I am 91 years old, and I have been a resident of this area all my life. I have been a teacher and have seen children from birth to adulthood in our communities and schools. I love this area and the people here. I have never experienced the scene of destruction to our hills and valleys as has been done by the MVP pipeline project. Please help us retain our way of life here in Charlottesville-Elliston community. I also want to read another message from a friend who lives along. I know they talk about the fishing and it's great here. It is great, but it hasn't been great for the people that live about a mile down from the cove situation that Mountain Valley Pipeline had to abandon a couple years ago because they couldn't stop the water from running. John McClouchan said that they abandoned that site due to safety to their workers and the integrity of the ground. So they'd be back that spring to start again when it was less dry. It's been 2 years. They've ripped up everything around us and still have not yet attempted to bore under 460 because they can't. They've hit water on both sides. They're gonna collapse 460 into such train tracks. So in regard to water quality, because we're not scientists, everybody here today is really, really smart. We're working class, poor folks in eastern Montgomery County who rely on ourselves because we're not getting any help from y'all. It says, we've noticed that the water is a lot muddier than ever. And granted, her husband was in support of the pipeline. Used to get on my case all the time about this. Is much muddier. Our fishing, which any given time we could pull 12 fish, and that was on a slow fishing day with my grandson. Now it seems like fish have dropped down, and we're lucky to get 3, and we do practice catch and release. The sediment on the bottom is also mucky and just slick. It didn't used to be that way. This is the runoff. These are the things that are being affected further down. I can't give you statistics. I'm not smart like that, but I do live in this community. I am a part of this community. We river rat. We do all the things. That's real knowledge. I'm telling you, this is a dangerous project. What's happening in Elliston is going to be a huge issue. We need you to help us. Roanoke Gas is full of it.
Thank you. I think I need you to wrap it up.
Lower income customers, well, they raise the price up on them for their less than 1% stake in this. So it's not just about the water, it's about the people that are being affected by these greedy people.
Thank you.
And I hope MVP speaks today.
Bridget Kelly Deering, Tammy Belinsky, Mara Robbins, Linda Majors, and Tina Smooze.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Bridget Kelly Deering. I'm from Lexington, Virginia, and I'm here to ask you to deny this certification. I'm taking my time to speak honestly about how the DEQ, FERC, and yes, even this body, the State Water Control Board, has not been doing their job to protect the water of Virginians. When I first learned that I was having to fight the DEQ and State Water Control Board to protect the water in my beloved homeland, I was shocked and in disbelief. But ever since 2015, I have done everything in my legal power to stop this pipeline from the destruction it wields to no avail. The hoops we jumped through for our regulatory agencies were only that, hoops to satisfy the lie that we are being careful with our resources for our future existence. We are not. We have discovered the hard way that the agencies we are supposed to trust to protect us are actually working to ensure projects like the Mountain Valley Pipeline will be completed. Time and time again, long before the Mountain Valley Pipeline received its certificate from FERC, we have been asked to present our comments to our regulatory organizations, and we have done so with meticulous scientific reports written by experts in the field. These requests were given a cursory look over, responded to unsatisfactorily, and the regulatory agencies then continued on with their plan to support the Mountain Valley Pipeline, effectively dismissing us again. Citizens just don't trust our regulatory agencies anymore. I know landowners who have their eminent domain cases in August 2022, but their properties look like the pipeline is nearly in the ground. If a company is allowed to change their intentions after permitting for things like who benefits, public need or corporate gain, or how waterways will be crossed, cross-cut or bore drilling, and the regulatory agencies accept them, then our government is not protecting us, but is in fact working for the corporations, and they are absolutely lying to us. I heard a lot of talk in the beginning of this meeting about the need for this pipeline. I have an audio recording from an early Roanoke County Board of Supervisors meeting in which an NextEra executive told us that absolutely none of this gas would be sold overseas. Now they openly admit that gas will be sold overseas. Mountain Valley has failed to present, and the DEQ did not consider the full impact of this pipeline project on streams and wetlands. When the Mountain Valley Pipeline's initial attempt to use a blanket permit was waylaid by legal challenges, they changed course and applied for this state-level 401 permit in order to authorize a Federal Clean Water Act Section 404 permit to discharge, dredge, and fill material from construction into our waterways, which are under jurisdiction by the Corps of Engineers. And they are very eager to begin open-cut crossings and discharge their dredge and fill into these water bodies. Why is the Mountain Valley Pipeline withholding a full description of the likely impacts from the remaining work to be done under their new plan? The reason I think is because they cannot cross these waterways as planned without causing unacceptable damages and violating state and federal laws.
Ma'am, I need you to wrap it up, please.
Okay, I repeat, the Mountain Valley Pipeline has not provided the information necessary to show that it can comply with Virginia's water quality standards. And I'd like to add that it sickens me to hear the Mountain Valley Pipeline plans to purchase mitigation credits to compensate for impacts to streams and wetlands. Are these credits coming from a coal company? Is this how our Virginia water regulators protect our water bodies?
Ma'am, your time is up.
By trading in pollution currency? I beg you, deny this certificate.
Thank you.
Tammy Belinsky, Copper Hill, Virginia. At the meeting in December 2017, when the Upland 401 permit was approved, Board Member Tim Hayes asked for assurance from the staff that the narrative water quality standards would be enforced. Ms. Davenport emphatically answered yes. Turns out that wasn't true. Your approval was built on a misrepresentation, and it hasn't stopped. Since then, the staff has consistently misrepresented the facts and circumstances of citizen concerns to the board. I don't know why, but this afternoon, the regulatory situation on Bent Mountain was entirely misrepresented to you. In that circumstance, MVP was preparing to blast. They had drilled holes in rock adjacent to a wetland that they claimed to avoid, but they put a timber mat there. Rock with water in it, a wetland, and a stream. They were gonna blast the rock and create a surface water adjacent to a wetland, adjacent to a stream, while the VWP permit is pending. They completely overlooked that regulatory situation. They're violating the law, and they're misleading you about it. And it just doesn't stop. Everything the citizens told you would happen has happened. And yet you continue to dismiss the real experts, the people who live here because their water was clean. The people who know what clean water is. Your staff doesn't know what clean water is. I've watched them. They don't know what a stream should look like. They think they're all dirty because that's where they come from. Your authorization to impact state waters, in this case, is a decision to degrade every surface water body to a Tier 1 stream.
That is effectively what's happening out here. But you don't know it because there hasn't been a scientist in the streams to even examine water quality impacts because all they're looking at is BMPs. No one has looked at a stream. There's feet of sediment in Little Creek. A tenth of an acre of land has washed downstream. What are you doing? You don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know what you're doing because they're not telling you. I'm going to echo former Director Bob Burnley's criticism of the DEQ with respect to its capacity to regulate uranium mining. The agency does not have the capacity.
Ma'am, your time is up. I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up, please.
In a manner that the agency does not have the capacity to regulate the MVP in a manner that reasonably assures that water quality standards will be protected. They can't meet the narrative standard, and that's the only reason why you're not enforcing it. You need to stop this injustice. You are not the Water Death Board.
Mara Robbins?
Mara Robbins, Floyd County, Virginia. Here is a glass of water from my well. It tastes of rock and root and earth and rain. It is the best I've had, my only spell, and it is cold and better than champagne. Perhaps
Ms. Robbins, you're to address the board.
one day to drink and sit a spell, go on their way. Someone in dark despair, as once I was, when I drank down cold water from a glass, drank a transparent health to keep me sane until the bitter mood had gone again. 3 years ago, that poem got me kicked out of a room in Radford University because I went 17 seconds over my time. I've gotten kicked out of as many meetings as I stayed in. I can't be in these rooms for very long without getting a cluster migraine. It's really difficult to recover from trauma when you keep getting re-injured. That goes for me, many of the people in this room, and our water. The abuse that has happened by the Mountain Valley Pipeline over the last 7 years of my life has caused so much harm, has done so much damage. And I'm going to quote a young friend of mine who asked you, some of you, and some of your predecessors years ago, there's respect for authority and there's respect for humanity. I don't get it. I want to walk in here and think you are human beings with hearts, that you can see the damage that's being done, that you can make decisions based on what you see. But the people who have shown humanity have been fired from the board for working for the opposition. Why are we the opposition? Why are we not collaborating? Why? I don't get it. The cognitive dissonance is deafening. So I know I'm not allowed to have empty water glasses in here. I'm not allowed to have signs. I don't know about these. I was told to take them off the trees, but there's nothing that says I can't have them in here if anybody wants one. These flags represent the thousands of water bodies that would be destroyed, that are being destroyed by the construction of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, even though they can't cross water bodies. I am so sick of this. You can exercise your authority, and you haven't. You didn't do it in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. I don't actually believe that you're going to do it tonight. I can hope. I can continue to hope. I can continue to pray. I can continue to try to represent the water, because watching what has happened to places like that mountain that Tammy Belinsky just mentioned, it's like standing by and watching a friend be assaulted and taking pictures of it, not being able to do anything. You can do something. But I keep coming back and saying this, and you keep not doing anything. North Carolina denied the permits. You could revoke the permits.
Thank you.
I don't have a lot of things. I really wish I did. I hope I can thank you. I hope I can thank you after tonight. I hope you're really listening.
Ms. Robbins, your time's up.
Yeah, I know. But that's working.
Linda Majors? Sorry. I'm Linda Majors. I live at the base of Brush Mountain in Montgomery County on the Mount Tabor Parsons-Sink plain. Our well water comes from Brush Mountain. It's source water there. I'm here today to ask you to deny the 401 permit. The solution to the open weeping wound that you've allowed to become a festering sore on our landscape is not to hurry up and cross the streams and restore the land. As my 90-year-old neighbor and landowner said sorrowfully, looking up at his mountain land, this land will never be restored. The trees will never grow back. Do you know that the fracked gas that is to be carried in this pipe is full of carcinogenic chemicals as well as radioactivity? Do you know that there is no abandonment plan for this 42-inch pipe that will be full of radioactive sludge? No cleanup plan will leave a collapsing 303-mile tube Superfund site. If you allow MVP to cross our source streams with this pipe, you are condemning future generations of people that drink this water from our mountain streams. This is your last chance to do the right thing for both rural and urban and liberal and conservative, because we all drink the water. Show us that corporate interests do not drive the Virginia Water Board decisions and deny this toxic corporate project the ability to both for us and our future generations deprive us of our health and well-being. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tina Smoosh. I'm a retired physician with a background in public health, and I live in Montgomery County, Virginia, about 6 miles up the road from Linda, who just spoke. Amendments to the Virginia Water Protection Permit Program in 2018 have proved to be no protection from reckless construction practices by MVP. It's a company desperate to complete a project now years behind schedule. State Water Control Board members have viewed numerous photos documenting negative impacts to southwestern Virginia's waterways since the project began. I suggest that our new board member request copies of submissions sent to DEQ staff by citizens and environmental groups through the years. DEQ designates the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, as the lead federal agency for the Virginia water permit. Alarmingly, the final environmental impact statement approved by FERC has been revealed to be a template of standard statements and phrasings used repeatedly by FERC since the late 1990s for describing any proposed large gas transmission pipeline, regardless of the local context and project-specific details. Based on FERC's cookie-cutter approach, we should be extremely concerned that FERC staff have not analyzed the MVP project in the critical detail necessary for preempting water impacts. For example, not only does the MVP cross more perennial streams than any other gas transmission pipeline built to date, but it also crosses the most miles of steep slopes and areas of high landslide risk, greatly increasing the reach and the magnitude of negative water quality impacts. Therefore, you must hold suspect DEQ's statement regarding the project's alignment with the application for a Virginia water protection permit, which FERC has determined to be the, quote, preferred alternative that could meet the project purpose. The State Water Control Board bears a weighty responsibility. Your answer to Virginia's people is you protect essential water resources under threat from numerous activities. We expect you to protect Virginians from further harm to vital water resources, including damage enabled by poor decisions of DEQ leadership and staff during 5 years of MVP construction. Do you know that MVP is constructing a 303-mile Superfund site due to the radioactive sludge that accumulates in the pipelining if this pipeline is ever activated? Radioactive lead and polonium are entrained in the methane stream derived from fracked gas. MVP states that there is no decommissioning plans when they abandon it after 50 years of use. You too should fear Mountain Valley Pipeline's now desperate paced construction of a polluting, highly pressurized fossil fuel conduit through Southwest Virginians' indispensable water resources. Citizens can live without methane, but no one can live without potable water. Please consider these issues seriously when determining the fate of our rural water resources. And I have a copy for everyone that includes some additional data.
Thank you.
Frida Cathcart, Donald Jones, Mark Becker, Victoria Stone, and Linda Parsons-Sink are the next 5, please.
My name is Frida Cathcart. I'm the Soil and Water Conservation District Director representing Roanoke City. Full disclosure, I am also a shareholder and one of the clients for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I'm not going to repeat what other people said earlier, but those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So I'm going to give a little history lesson. Back before the eminent domain was declared by the judge, MVP contractor said in court, this would have been in January of 2018, that they needed to get the pipes in the ground within 6 months or they would be compromised and unusable. That was in 2018. And he said that they needed to do quick take eminent domain because of that. Also at the time, they said they were going to be finished by the end of 2018. DEQ gave permission, while regulations require only 500 feet of open ground, DEQ allowed the Mountain Valley Pipeline to open up 5,000 feet of open space in multiple locations along the route. Now, MVP can restore where their pipes have already been in the ground. Nothing's stopping them from doing that and planting grass. Other utilities and companies do that. They should be required to do that. Why aren't they being required to do that? The best thing to protect our water is to have grass on it and to cover the ground. Back in March of 2019, the State Water Control Board was going, well, it was December of 2018, they said that they were going to have a hearing to decide whether or not to revoke the certificate, but in March of 2019, they found out that the General Assembly had taken their power away to revoke it. And before they gave them the permit back in December of 2017, the board specifically asked, if we give this certificate, can we revoke it? And they were told yes. And then the General Assembly changed the law on you. Shame on them. And you all should fight back and get your power back. You are our power to protect our water. We need you to do that. In last year, an MVP contractor said that they were spending $20 million a month on erosion and sediment controls. They need to plant grass. It's cheaper and does a better job. Who is managing this project? In March of 2021, MVP cut down trees in sensitive water areas where the trees fell into the stream of the endangered Roanoke log perch, where they weren't allowed to do that from March 1st until June 30th. And they didn't have a permit to cross the stream. Seriously. Currently, the DEQ is not enforcing environmental laws to protect our water. The MVP is constructed in a wetland that was marked on the MVP map without a permit, and the DEQ did not stop them, and I was physically there and saw them do it. It's the most frustrating thing I've ever seen. The EPA has delegated enforcement to the DEQ. The DEQ must do their job. The water monitoring box that has been set up in a location that I've been documenting for over 2 years is set up downstream after clean other tributaries enter into it. It's not going to give you accurate readings. There would be, I'm wrapping it up. I'm wrapping it up. There would be more property owners here to testify about the horrors that they've experienced from this pipeline, but they're dead. And the last one died this past Friday. He had a stroke. When MVP
your time is up.
Entered his property without a manager and started constructing when they weren't to, he had a stroke and he died on Friday. And I feel that pressure as a shareholder in a company that's a client of the MVP, and I want you to as well. Your power is to deny the permit and tell your staff to do their job.
Hello, Board. Thanks for the opportunity. My name's Donald Jones. I'm Generation 7. We have the Jones family farmlands in Newport, Virginia, the historical district. We have many mountain springs feeding Seeping Creek. It's at the base of our property. I think everybody here has a job to do, and everybody wants to do a good job and make the right decisions. My observation of how the meeting's going, you have the citizens of Virginia trying to protect the water, which we rely on y'all to do that for us. You're our voice. And then you have the people that make a living by putting this pipe in the ground, wanting to save their jobs. I don't think it's y'all's job to protect jobs or to mend fences. It's to protect our waters for generations to come. I have a grandson, which will be in generation 9, and we count on the pristine, clean waters from these mountains would trickle down all the way to Richmond, to Virginia Beach. We have clean waters, and we survived our lands by common sense. No college educations much, but common sense tells me you wallow around with equipment near a creek, wetlands, whatever, you're going to have contamination. And so why are we going to let this company come in here and potentially pollute, contaminate our waters is beyond me. What benefit is it for us, for the citizens of Virginia, that y'all are here to represent, to protect us? You're our voice. I don't understand it. You know, I've read somewhere that a human has to have water within 3 to 4 days or they can't survive. I know my dad always said that's why he liked this family farmland, that's why we settled there, because it's clean water. And why we're gonna let this company come in here for a little bit of money, I don't know whose pocket they're padding or what, but I think it's time we step up. Y'all have a chance to make the right decisions for the citizens. I've not heard one person that's against this project say why that they're going to protect the water or how they're going to protect it. Everybody against it is because we think it's not to be protected. Like the DEQ told us, They were gonna protect the upstream waters. Well, I got video to prove that that doesn't happen. And as far as them trying to hurry up to get the sediment under control, they did sow grass up on our right of way, but it won't grow. It's all the topsoil is gone. There is no topsoil. Grass won't grow. They sowed it a year ago. Nothing. Just muddy runoff. It's just a mess. It's a mess. And I got video to show you. Anybody would like to see it, I'll be more than glad to show it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, all of you, for serving on this board and for putting up with what you put up with tonight. I'm sure it's not an easy job, but I trust that all of you hold the positions you have because you want to exercise good judgment on behalf of the citizens. We've heard a lot of comments tonight.
Sir, if I could get your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Mark Becker. I'm a resident of Giles County, just outside Newport. I have listened to the equipment and watched the trucks working on the pipeline for the last 6 months, especially. It's very irritating. As I was saying, and the gentleman before me just pointed out, a lot of the testimony that you've heard tonight can be polarized. There are people who stand to make money, the investors, the people who run the pipeline company, the gas companies, the gas distribution companies, the economic development people. All these people want to make money, which is fine. Everybody understands that. Everybody respects that. On the other side, you've got people who care about the environment. Your organization is the Department of Environmental Quality. It's a political position. You're constantly trading off incremental little bits of environmental quality for economic gain. We understand that has to happen. That is what has been going on for the last, since this country was founded. You can't improve on environmental quality of undisturbed natural environment. Any development is a trade-off. What we've got going on now, in light of a Code Red report from the United Nations, is we may have less than 50 years to even enjoy any kind of quality of life. Things have changed since the project was approved 7 years ago. The science was not nearly in such strong agreement, and the statistics about how rapidly global warming is coming upon us have been alarming even to the scientists. So if you are going to be responsible about the environmental quality, you have to look beyond the little details of water impact here, erosion there, and I'll add, if this company has incurred over 300 violations for erosion control already without even trying to cross a moving body of water, what do you think might happen when they get into crossing actual moving water? It's going to be a lot worse. There's no reason to believe it will be better. So the perspective I urge you to take is long-term environmental quality. Burning gas for the equivalent of 26 power plants for another 50 years is not the direction we need to go as a nation and a society. It's time for those kinds of economic trade-offs to stop. It's time for the parents to say, I'm sorry, children, we can't seize these quick, easy profits anymore. We have to do the hard thing for our children and our grandchildren. And I urge you to think carefully in that much larger perspective and framework as you drive home tonight. I assume you have children. Some of you have grandchildren.
Sir, I need you to wrap it up, please.
Do the right thing for people. Take the long view about our environmental quality. Shut this project down.
Thank you for coming to our neighborhood and listening. I'm Victoria Stone. I am a resident of Giles County and a part-time resident of Costa Rica. Costa Rica, without anywhere near the economic resources that the United States has reforested their country since 1987. They have 98% of their electricity generation covered sustainably through wind, hydropower, and solar. Now, arguably they have a different climate, but we can do better than we've been doing. We've caused tremendous pollution all around this country. And it doesn't matter what MVP officials claim because they've ignored knowledgeable citizen inputs. I read everything that was submitted to FERG, which was called by Robert Kennedy, who died a long time ago, a rogue agency. I read everything that was submitted against this project for the first 2 years, and I got to where I couldn't read it anymore. They've lied. They've had the violations that everybody has talked about. Their permit limitations where they have imperiled our air, our water, our soil, our farms, our public health, and the entire planet, because fracked gas, it's not just moving it through the pipe, it's getting it out of the ground that causes tremendous pollution. And these pipes have been compromised by sitting out in the elements. Even before they were compromised, they had certain tolerances for how much they can leak. It's not that they can't leak at all. They can only leak a certain percentage. And those are carcinogens and radioactivity. I get to see where these slopes are that they're planning on putting these 42-inch pipes, which nobody has done before, on a daily basis. And they're crazy. I keep thinking some of the equipment will just cartwheel right down those hills and into Route 42 in Newport, which might be a good thing because it would get us a lot of national coverage, but it wouldn't be so good for them. None of the natural gas, and I don't consider frack gas to be natural gas, is for use in West Virginia and Virginia. And anybody who thinks they're going to tap into it is going to have a lot of money to pay them to do it. I hope that you all will hear us, hear the emotion, hear the connections that we have to the land and to the environment and to our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Linda Parsons-Sink. I'm from Catawba. I live on Catawba Road outside of Blacksburg, Virginia. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the board tonight. It is my opposition that Mountain Valley Pipeline not be allowed to do stream crossings. Construction in karst areas like those found all over Southwest Virginia are complicated and much more risky for streams and rivers. My experience with Mountain Valley Pipeline has proven that rules are not enough to keep our water safe. After blasting and trenching near our farm 3 years ago, our once pristine spring has now become turbid with sediment from the pipeline and is degrading after each large rain event. Our spring was outside the area designated to be affected by the pipeline. We challenged Mountain Valley Pipeline as soon as their turbidity started. They denied they were the cause, and they said they were following prescribed protocol. Despite their denials, we later found out that Mountain Valley Pipeline had blasted and trenched directly over a swallet. Mountain Valley Pipeline took 71 days to find out that their swallet was in their trench during a routine inspection, despite their own protocol called for careful inspection after every blast event. There were 17 blast events in this area of the swallet. Furthermore, Mountain Valley Pipeline again and again after we formed Mountain Valley Pipeline again and again, that our spring had been turbid after every large event. They did nothing. The SWAT, after being discovered, was dye tested and was determined to be connected to our spring. We were not supposed to be affected by their protocols, but after blasting through karst, our spring was damaged. They denied they caused the damage. Their protocol to inspect after every blast event did not find the problem. We were told that the SWAT was found after a so-called routine inspection, and only then was a dye test done that proved that a direct connection to our spring. Our spring continues to be damaged to this day. Based on our experience, we do not believe that there are any rules, regulations that can adequately safeguard our water resources in karst from Mountain Valley Pipeline borings. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next 5 speakers are Roberta Johnson, Crystal Cavalier, Matthew Pickett, Amy Nelson, and Katie Whitehead. Please.
Good evening. My name is Roberta Johnson, and I live on Bent Mountain in Roanoke County. My husband, Robert, is a retired DEQ senior environmental engineer. He has submitted a 4-page document detailing the inadequacies of the draft water protection permit for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So I will just try to summarize a few quickly of those points. DEQ and the Water Board are charged with protecting our waters. A lot of other things have come up today, but your mission is to protect our waters and represent we citizens. Please note that MVP has postponed the most problematic and sensitive portions of the route to the very end. Karst, Tier 3 watersheds. This is not a coincidence that it's at the end. They want to ram it through. Tier 3 exceptional waters, of which there are only 30 in Virginia, are created by their watersheds. Tier 3 Bottom Creek's watershed begins at 4,000 feet on Poor Mountain and descends across the Bent Mountain Plateau into Bottom Creek Gorge at 2,400 feet, 3 miles downstream from the MVP right-of-way. Over just 6.2 miles in this watershed, streams will be crossed 30 times and wetlands 44 times over 6 miles. Some will be trenched and some will be bored, but nowhere is it mentioned that the streams and wetlands that will be blasted and trenched are sitting on metamorphic bedrock, not karst on Bent Mountain, which is in the Blue Ridge. Metamorphic stream beds cannot possibly be restored to their, quote, original condition. Therefore, when the permits charts suggest that no streams will be permanently impacted, that's nonsense. Concrete block and rebar is not the same as metamorphic bedrock. There will be impacts, even to the intermittent streams, because that's where many wild trout and threatened orangefin mad toms spawn. Furthermore, fracturing the bedrock may alter aquifers that supply potable water supplies, and we believe this has already started on Bent Mountain. During construction, there will be erosion and sedimentation. MVP's track record assures this. Nowhere in the permit is there an attempt to quantify that. Also, there's no accounting of the volume of water that flows from the watershed. Linear feet crossed by the pipeline don't take into consideration those cumulative impacts. I'm going fast. All the rare species in Bottom Creek. 10% of all of Virginia's fish species are found there. The gorge falls another 1,000 feet to where the water joins the South Fork of the Roanoke River. And all that sediment will go down to the South Fork, which was not even analyzed for the presence of log perch. In evaluating those threats, that additional sediment will end up in the Roanoke River, and that was not considered in the scientific report about the log perch. Finally, time of year restrictions for trout and orangefin madtom must be mandatory, not just recommendations for the Department of Wildlife Control. Let's see. That is because the state identifies, it also must be mandatory in the Bottom Creek watershed. That's because the state identifies Bottom Creek and all of its named and unnamed tributaries as natural trout waters, and intermittent streams are where they spawn. Construction in wetlands should also be restricted because streams emerge from them. And my last point, please deny this draft permit for many reasons, and also remember that EPA's recommendation that was for the COE to deny the permit as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Thank you.
It's Thank you for your endurance.
Makutamin Chin Kiyohe. Good evening, my name is Crystal Cavalier. Thank you for the opportunity to comment and even listening. I'm against this. I'm an enrolled member of the Occaneechi Saponi. My people have been here in Virginia since before the formation of the United States, since the 1500s. It's no place like home. I don't have a technical degree, but as my good friend once said, I have a PhD, post-hole digger. I don't brag on my accomplishments, but I know climate and the environment, and I know greenwashing when I hear it. What is the rush to push it through? I'm not here to lecture. I'm a former resident of Virginia. I've lived here for 6 years, but now I live right across the border where this pipeline will end up. However, my relatives still live here. People are scared to speak up because of the volatile history in the South. That should tell you something. People are scared. I'm here to speak for the water. Crossing streams and wetlands is not natural. We have gotten so technical in the people that are not listening to the earth, the land, the water. There are things that scientists, engineers, and technical people refuse to see and understand. If you listen closely, you can hear the waters crying for you to protect it. If you ever go outside and you smell sweetgrass, that's your relative whispering to you to protect it. Have you looked at what dead water or dead land looks like? It's not pretty. Nothing grows. Like before said, all water is connected above and below the ground. I'm not here to tell people not to work or whatever, but I think once you destroy what God has created, you will never be able to restore it to its original state, no matter how great technology is. You are here to protect the water. That is your job. Please do what you were selected to do. We, the people, need you. Be like North Carolina and vote no on the permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Pickett. For the past 30 years and 3 days, I've lived in Mount Tabor Road, probably a few hundred yards from where the pipe is right now. It's very close. I can hear the trucks every day. But I've been very lucky. As a born Appalachian, I have advocated for my region a lot. I'm a professor at UVA-Wise. I stop at Sugar Hill Brewing every time I'm in St. Paul. I know the efforts that they have taken to revive the clinch. When I was in high school, one of my friend's dads was a professor and would take him down, my buddies, to volunteer to clean the clinch. And it was this wonderful thing when they opened the state park a month ago, 2 months ago. It wasn't very long. So I wonder why we're risking another waterway that, I mean, I guess we can clean it up like that, but you know, how many decades does that take? And I'll leave it on. I've worked in film production in Bristol, Tennessee, and Virginia, and Grundy, and we produced one of the largest feature films west of Charlottesville. It was called Believe, and I was the Virginia fixer. And And when I was down there, I was going to go get a drink of water at one of the places we were in Buchanan County, and one of my friends said, "Pickett, don't drink that. That's bad water." And I thought to myself at the time, that's what you tell your neighbor when they say they're going to vacation in Mexico. But we're in Virginia, so let's preemptively not have a problem like we had in the Clinch River. The gentleman that explained our awesome fishing streams, and the fact that I'm a young person and hope to live another 50 years. I'd love to just not have to fight this back and clean it up over the next few decades. So that's my honest to gosh hope from a young person to all of you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Nelson. I've lived in Blacksburg for 25 years, and I haven't been part of this fight against this pipeline for as long as a lot of people who have spoken to you tonight, but I just wanted to, first of all, thank you all for coming here, because as people have said, it's hard to go to, it's hard for us to go to Richmond, and we do appreciate you coming out, and I hope you'll listen and really take what's been said into account and into your hearts as you go forward and look at all of this. And I would just ask you to think about the most critical infrastructure of all, which is our water. And that's what you're supposed to be protecting, and I just hope you'll help us do that.
My name is Katie Whitehead. I'm a native and resident of Pittsylvania County. My husband and I own a tree farm on the MVP Southgate route, where MVP plans to cross the Bannister River. I attended the hearing in Rocky Mount. I'm going to ask you questions prompted by comments made. I don't expect answers. I thank you for your attention. Many people last night asked you to approve the permit without mentioning water. Representatives of my county focused on tax revenue and didn't stay to hear criticism of the permit. Yet it's thoughtful criticism that gives these hearings their value. So, one, last night Joshua Vanna raised the issue of DEQ reportedly having stated that the Water Board had made a, quote, preliminary decision to approve the MVP permit. I understand you did not. Still, there are obvious questions. What influence does DEQ have on your decisions? What is your distinct responsibility, independent of DEQ? 2, estimates of MVP's completion rate, oh gosh, I've just got one more minute, have ranged from 50 to 90%. Of the route that you have responsibility for, what percentage is complete? Number 3, several speakers have pointed you to the EPA's May 27th letter to the Army Corps regarding MVP stream crossings. Have you studied the MVP draft permit in light of this letter in all its constructively critical detail? Please do. Number 4, Grace Terry last night asked you her own compelling question. What is happening now on Bent Mountain? Is what is happening permitted? Should it be?
How does her experience inform your review of this permit? Several speakers addressed enforcement issues. What responsibility do you, the Water Board, take for enforcement? Do you only permit, or do you also enforce? Permit review should fully account for the challenges of enforcement. And again, thank you.
Thank you
for your attention.
Donna Pitt, Kay Givens, I'm sorry I can't read your writing as to what's after the K, Dave Walker, and Cynthia Munley.
Hello, my name is Donna Pitt. Thank you for having us today. I live in Giles County, and I am here today to ask you to consider who you, the Citizen Board, represent. You do not represent the Department of Environmental Quality. You do not represent the governor, who was obligated, by the way, to appoint you. You represent us, the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and by statute, you have the authority to promulgate, approve, and deny water regulation permits, and to sanction and initiate legal action in case of regulation violations. At the very beginning of this process of public review and comment on the then proposed Mountain Valley Pipeline, we, citizens, landowners, environmental scientists, provided the Citizen Board with myriad evidence why this project was flawed to the point of environmental criminal negligence. When this board raised questions and concerns about the soundness of the project, those concerns were overridden by the DEQ administration as they summarized public comments. Even though additional regulations were imposed on Mountain Valley on upland construction, those regulations have proven woefully inadequate to monitor and control the environmental damage MVP has done to our upland watersheds. In spite of documented, sustained evidence of the project's inability to control or mitigate erosion and sedimentation of our streams and wetlands, DEQ's response is that as long as MVP cleans it up in 3 days' time, that's all that can be expected. Those of us on the ground, on our own land, in our communities, see the damage those 3 days do to our water, our springs, our special streams, and the wildlife they sustain. We see this on a daily basis. No amount of mitigation bank credits can restore the purity of those waters and wetlands. Read that EPA report carefully. There is reason behind it. So my request to you, our Citizen Board, is to not let DEQ administration drown out your questions, your concerns, and your reservations. You do not work for DEQ. They work for you, and they should not be allowed to do your thinking for you. Nor can they make your decision to approve or deny this new permit to blast and drill through our water systems. It does not have to be a foregone conclusion as they have tried to say it does. I ask you to not allow yourselves to be used by DEQ. Reject this permit and let this project die the death it deserves. Thank you.
I wanted you to see something from my farm, from caves that were blown up,
by Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Ma'am, can I ask you to state your name for the record?
I wanted to do this so that you could see what these were, because this is hard. My name is Carolyn Gibbons. I own a farm in Newport that is bisected by Mountain Valley Pipeline. I guess I thought the worst problem was that I was in entirely the blast and evacuation zone, the whole farm. And you know what that means, I'm sure. I have a tenant who lives in the house on that farm. He would be vaporized if that blows. It's this kind of a farm. It has caves. So I digress. Any department, including the Water Control Board and DEQ, working with MVP as they seek additional rights to affect water bodies in the path of the right-of-way, needs to be aware that MVP does not do their homework in careful preparation for altering the land they want to use. I will provide you with 2 examples. This farm I own is on the side of Sinking Creek Mountain. There is sizable karst ridge on the side of the mountain, complete with an open cave on the south end of the ridge. Water from a spring higher up on my farm flows into a swallet in that cave, continues to run underground along the length of the ridge. Mountain Valley Pipeline chose to route the right-of-way over that same steep ridge. It is where they decided to put the right-of-way is 240 feet west of the open cave with the spring running into it, in spite of a survey map that was provided to them that clearly warned them of the karst hazards and pointed out the opening into the cave. In fall of 2018, MVP chose to dynamite the topmost section of the ridge, and they blasted open part of a cave, which they then proceeded to fill with clay. We found the walls of the cave, which at first looked like huge boulders, lined up along the edge of the right-of-way. On further examination, we found crystalline structures on the inside walls of the cave, which screamed cave. MVP denied it. And they denied it to FERC. Their karst experts denied all evidence of cave formation. In spite of the speleothems that we found and the cave and the side walls of the cave with their crystalline features. I believe their karst experts are not really karst experts, they're cavers. I brought 2 PhD prepared geologists to visit the right-of-way. One is this gentleman, who is a world-known karst expert, and the other is a PhD qualified PhD geologist that works with Ernest Castner. Without hesitation, after viewing the formations and the speleothems that we had found, they confirmed that MVP had indeed destroyed part of a cave. Filling that cave up with clay has proven problematic because typically snow melt as well as rainwater runs into karst, into caves and other openings in karst through its waterways. When you destroy those waterways, the water flows in places it never has before. Last week, the 5.5 inches of rain we experienced had nowhere to go into the ground, nowhere to go in that high ridge. So it poured down the mountainside along with mud and rocks, and much of it more than 100 feet down into the pastures and the hayfield beneath it. MVP did not do their homework on karst, yet they chose to construct a huge pipeline right through it. By the way, that was not part of their karst mitigation plan they had submitted to FERC in support of their certificate. Am I out of time?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'll leave the second
Yeah,
one.
please leave that for us.
Okay.
You're welcome to, anybody here is welcome to submit their written comments.
Right. I urge you to think about, all the things they've done to our water. And as everybody else has said, please do the right thing.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Here I am after Rocky Mount last night. I wanted to make sure that my points get to be stated and you have a chance to consider them. I live in Salem, which is downstream from what is happening with the Mountain Valley Pipeline. The entire city of Salem and much of Roanoke County depend on the Roanoke River to fill the reservoir, and Salem takes the water directly from the river for its treatment plant. And when I hear thinking that MVP will cross our headwaters 120 times for the Roanoke River, our little Roanoke River, and each of those crossings represents a place where radioactive sludge is going to sit for eons, filling our river with these toxins. I am fearful for my grandchildren, and I'm here to speak for them and for the people in the municipal areas that are downstream. So many of us live downstream. So what is happening on Bent Mountain, that is our headwaters, and it's criminal because the Clean Water Act protects the headwaters. And if you grant this permit, I don't think it's going to hold up in court because it's going to be challenged. The standards under the 401 are much higher than the 404. And if you can't do it right under the 404, you're not going to make it under the 401. The other thing about the pipeline is that it equals 1% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. So that's another threat to my children and grandchildren. I urge you to use the most powerful tool you have, which is deny this 401 permit. The management of this project leads many to think that something other than science and a long record of MVP violations is driving this decision. You are the citizen board, and you oversee DEQ, not the other way around. I still cannot understand why in the summer's end of 2018, the board made the decision, or tried to make the decision, to revoke the permit. They did it again. They made the decision to consider it in the late fall 2018, and they didn't learn from DEQ that they had that authority taken from them in the beginning of 2018. So I think you're being ill-informed by DEQ. The science is being ignored. The governor called for the science. 6 came, met with Governor Northam, and they each said, you can't safely build this project over these mountains. And then they never heard back from the governor. Northam also said that the law would decide then, and the law, I mean, there are so many challenges to this pipeline, and yet you keep allowing it to be built. Because DEQ ignored scientists, experts, and citizens, the project is being built in reverse, with MVP now asking for a brand new permit, which should have been settled at the beginning of the project. But this project is being fast-tracked, and you all are letting this happen. This is gross mismanagement of a huge infrastructure project that's very harmful for our state. DEQ's myth is that all is normal, that water quality is being protected, not by water quality standards, but by a technical method of maintaining BMPs. That is a bold-faced fabrication. It's not being protected. This is directly from a letter that Melanie Davenport wrote.
Ma'am, can I ask you to wrap it up, please?
Pardon?
Can I ask you to wrap it up? You're out of time.
Okay. We see the destruction, and it needs to stop. A lot of the science was ignored. The Dodds report, 43 pages, Giles County legal brief, and hydro study, that was 66 pages, and I have others here. The other danger that is that is happening around the world, which is happening in Bent Mountain right now, is draining the wetlands. And the boring under the streams is likely to go on a lot longer than predicted and just bleed water for a very long time. Those wetlands around the world that are being depleted are causing the aquifers to dry up. And as a person that lives downstream, I think this is something that you need to take very seriously, because thousands of people are depending on the water from the Roanoke River. So I urge you to deny this permit, and we'll have to do the best we can to try to restore the land. But it needs to be stopped. I thank you for coming to our area, and I hope that you make the best decision to preserve our environment for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Walker?
I guess my name's read in the record. I'm Dave Walker. I'm a longtime resident of Newport, Virginia. I've got lots of problems with this whole thing. The way they went about starting it, the strong arm tactics, get people to sign over eminent domain. The precision pipeline, which is anything but precision, as far as I know, they still have litigation up in Pennsylvania for a botched crap job that they did up there. We got the people from MVP or whatever, none of them live here. They don't give a rat's butt about what our life is going to be like after they're gone. And they got a LLC in behind their corporation there, so when or if they do blow it up, then they sit there and they'll give us some shekels or give us a bag of magic beans like they've been selling to us the whole doggone time. You know, I get tired of this. I've seen people getting angry, especially over the last 4 years. We all saw what's going on. Nobody seems to care. One thing comes down to the very root of it or whatever. It's greed. Their greed is what they want. They don't care who they have to climb over in order to get what they want. I refer to it as stupidity, cupidity, because that's all they're concerned with, their bottom line. You guys are public servants. Serve the public. They're not from here. They don't live here. They're not your public. They're not your constituent. These are the people that you see here. You know, I just hate to see how corrupt everything is. DEQ, they turn nothing. They turn a blind eye to everything. A lot of the damages and faults that they had done were actually reported by Mountain Valley Watch, which submitted a lot of this. So they take credit for it, come in and say, oh, we self-reported it and did that. Well, they wouldn't have done anything if it wasn't for the fact that we're running air drones and taking pictures of everything. It galls me that nobody seems to have the cojones to stand up and do what's right to stop these corporate people that just want to seize everything, pave over everything. And you know, the ladies have been talking about it earlier. That's true. What are your kids, what are your grandkids going to breathe? What are they going to drink when it's all used up and gone? I don't know. I don't get it. We could go a whole nother different direction if there's just the will to put it in there. Get all these major corporations, oil, gas, and all that, diversify some of theirs. Go ahead and invest in alternate forms of energy. They don't have to sit there and pump gas all the time. So that's basically about, and I am going to finish up reading what Carolyn was reading. MVP did not do their homework on karst, yet chose to construct a huge pipeline right through it. By the way, that was a part of the karst mitigation plan that was submitted to FERC support of their candidates. The second example, again, demonstrates that the MVP did not do their homework about sources of water in Sinking Creek Valley. MVP didn't have a clue about all of the springs, the flow out of the side of the Sinking Creek Mountain, and their continuous stream of water piped underground down to the mountain to feed every farm and on this side of Sinking Creek Mountain. Nor did they know how spring water works.
Sir, I think your time is up.
Well, I realize that.
I would like you to realize that and finish up, please.
Well, I am. Springs are a source of water on the north facing side of the mountain. They supply water, intricate deeded water rights dated back to 1860. Farms have the other rights to water.
Sir?
Yeah. Okay.
Wrap it up, please.
Oh, I'm the last one. You guys want to go out and spend some of your profits. Okay. Well, I do. I was fully
You've had just as much time and a little bit more, just like everybody else. I'm asking you to wrap it up.
I got you.
Okay?
So, farewell.
That was it for the list of folks who signed up to speak. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? And
Thank
please identify yourself, and you've got 3
Yes,
minutes.
Thank you, and I apologize because I came in late.
That's
I was,
okay.
It's okay.
Out of town on business. My name is Mary Ann Capp. I live here in Montgomery County, and I have a farm with pristine water. I'm concerned about its water quality being degraded. I'm speaking here today on an entirely personal basis with personal observations and personal comments. And I say that because I'm still employed, and I am concerned about that. I began my career in the oil and gas industry around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I was born, raised, and educated. I found the industry then to be sloppy and reckless. And as you've heard lots of testimony, and I've been in previous hearings and showed photographs in Richmond, I find it, and I've been all over the pipeline path, to be still sloppy and reckless. You've heard many thoughtful people give you lots of testimony, people with doctorate degrees, medical degrees. I don't have any of that. I'm just a workaday girl doing business. And in the business that I do not hear anyone clamoring for this frack gas in this region. And so it, to me, is a myth. And I also understand that most of the gas was to go overseas. I know there's a buyer of a small amount of it. As Ms. Belinsky testified, the sloppy and recklessness that I've seen is unlawful. I think you need to pay attention to that. I think you need to protect this region's resources, natural resources, for the people who live here and who will live here in the future. So I'm asking you to please deny this permit on behalf of the greater needs of people to live on this planet. We're in a crisis with this climate, and it cannot tolerate this. I believe the jobs can be pivoted. I see it happening. The global business leaders I know are doing that right now, making plans to pivot away from fossil fuels. We'll not entirely get away from it, but we don't, in my opinion, and from what I've observed, need this collision course in this region or on this planet. Thank you very much for your time.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your last name. Could you spell?
Capp, Mary Ann Capp, Montgomery County.
I can't catch it.
Capp, C-A-P-P.
Capp. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Trish McLaughlin. And I didn't really plan to have a comment for tonight, but I did want to, a couple folks had mentioned the sort of the fiduciary responsibility of the citizens board, separate from DEQ. And so I just wanted to take a moment to remind you guys to ask staff to inform you of the, as a couple of folks have mentioned also, the criminal negligence of actions that were taken by the Mountain Valley Pipeline on August 10th, 11th, 12th, regarding drilling into groundwater into surface water that it has not been determined that we know of, and we have not received a response from the Virginia DEQ when asked to have folks come out and hydrologists to take a look at what happened. And what MVP did at that time, as the folks on the ground were letting them know that they were drilling into the water, which they don't have a permit to do. They can't be in water at all. They can't be working in water, and they were. And they were instructed that they were. And what they did is they brought the drills out there, and they drilled 60, 80 more holes alongside the holes that they had drilled to drop dynamite in to blast. And the reason that they did that, because we had a number of folks that spent hours taking measurements of the water standing in those holes for 2 days straight, the water rising in those holes. They came out and they drilled those extra 60 or 70 holes in the hopes that they could lower the water and spread it out. So I just encourage you that are on the board considering this, how in the world can you consider approving any type of permit for them to work in water anywhere when they are not even following what you've already asked them to do? A judge was to hear it on Friday in Roanoke. And do you know what they told us? They told us, go home. We're not going to blast the dynamite. The judge is going to hear it in federal court on Friday. And then they blew the dynamite up in all those holes in the middle of the night, in the dark. It's about integrity. So the permit that they have put in front of you to approve is not worth the words written on the paper. Their commitment to credits, to mitigation credits, they can't keep their word. They can't keep their word. Thank you.
Trish, I'm sorry, your last, Trish, since I don't have your sign in, I didn't catch your last name. I'm sorry. We just need to keep a record. I'm sorry. MC?
MC?
G?
LAWHORN.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone else who is here who did not sign up or that I somehow missed who would like to speak this evening? Okay.
I'd like to thank everyone who came out tonight to thoughtfully deliver their comments. We very much appreciate all of you taking the time to do that. And want to remind everybody that written comments can be submitted through October 27th, 2021, and I encourage you all to do that, especially those of you that had comments typed up tonight. Please feel free to submit those. Make sure you include your name and full address. The public hearing for this matter is now adjourned. Thank you.